Get ready to power up those time machines! Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Welcome to another installment of the Modern Horizons set review. We have a number of pieces today that definitely speak to old school Magic in a number of ways. We got a whole bunch of cards to talk about, so let us dive right in. We're going to start out with Blade Back Sliver. 1 red, 1 colorless for a 2/2 with Hellbent. Hellbent's the original Rakdos ability all the way back from the very first Ravnica block, rather than our 17th return. How many times are we going back? Anyways, the ability is, as long as you have no cards in your hand, Sliver creatures you control have tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. Slivers can turn a last stand into a stunning victory. So this turns all of your creatures into pseudo prodigal sorcerers. Sure, they can't hit creatures, but as long as your hand's empty, you can fire off a bunch of damage and get around the creatures that way. So overall, for a deck that'll usually have a bunch of creatures on the board, this feels like a pretty decent Sliver. I mean, the black blade, I don't know why I'm saying that. The blade back, the blade that's jutting out of the back, it doesn't really feel like it was meant to originally be a projectile. So that part's just kind of like, it looks more like a defensive mechanism on the back, but that's a minor quibble. Overall, the Sliver looks very alien, and so does the world that it's on, to be honest. I'm not exactly sure where this is supposed to be set, but it's got a very evocative look where you just go, boom, look at me, I stand right out with these bright, it's like the colors of like a frog almost. I like it. I like the way that it looks. It's got that alien feel to it. And it seems like a pretty decent Sliver. There's another one in here that's it's not so good. After that, we've got Crashing Footfalls. This is a weird one. 1 green, suspend 4, which means you pay 1 green, set it aside with 4 counters on it. Each upkeep, you remove a counter from it. Once the last counter comes off, you get to play the spell. So what it does is it makes 2 4/4 green Rhino creature tokens with trample. So for 1 mana, you are getting 8 power, but it's not just 1 mana, it's 1 mana plus 4 of your turns. So whether this will turn out to be something that can make any kind of impact on Modern remains to be seen. The artwork itself is fairly straightforward. It's literally 2 rhinos. The name is Crashing Footfalls, so that would be the feet of the rhinos slamming down into the ground. I mean, it's all right. I think it's interesting that when they make cards like this, they have to put the little color identity down there, because you can't use the border of a card to determine its colors. Thanks to old school cards like the revised Serendib. Why did you do this? They've made mistakes in the past where you have cards with the wrong color border, and it's like, what is this? Although a crazier example would be the Italian Sarah Angels that are printed on Time Elemental artwork. They're just absolutely bizarre. Next up, we've got a card that's pretty flavorful. I like it. 1 black, 2 colorless for Dead of Winter. It's a sorcery. All non-snow creatures get -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of snow permanents you control. The flavor text says, "At last, silence," and it's attributed to Tevish Zot. And that's pretty cool. I mean, Tevish Zot, we had Minion of Tevish Zot all the way back in the day, and they also made some reference to it in Cold Snap as well, but that doesn't sit in the same sort of nostalgia box for me. The artwork is pretty cool. It looks like a moonlit night on a snowy plain. There are all these combatants that have been wiped out. The last remaining combatants are kind of frozen in a pose where they've both managed to skewer each other, and nobody's left alive. So that's pretty cool. I mean, the idea is this is a board wipe. It looks pretty dope. It looks like a board wipe has happened. I do have one minor complaint where it's like, if it's based on the number of snow permanents you have, it would make it seem like it's actually like something to do with the snowlands and the cold that have destroyed everybody. But from this, it really looks like they just died battling each other, and they happen to get snowed on afterwards or something. I don't know. But either way, the artwork is really, really nice. Moving on, we have the end of a cycle. Back in the day, back in the Urza's day of the original Urza's block, I love how I have to say original Urza's block now, just in case, you never know. We might revisit like previous blocks again. Anyhow, Morphling, that was the card back in the day. And that card was a big deal. Honestly, that card made huge waves when it showed up. Partially because combat damage used to use the stack, so the final ability of all the Morphling style creatures was more potent then. Being able to give +1, -1, or -1, +1 actually turned out to be really strong because you could pump it up to doing 5 damage and then have that damage go on the stack and then change its toughness, its power and toughness so that it could withstand more damage. You could basically make it into a 5/1, have it deal its damage, and turn it into a 1/5 or bigger. You could go like 0/6, 0/7, however big you wanted to make it survive as well. And it was honestly, the Morphling's a pretty gross card. So they created an entire cycle. You have Thornling, Torchling, the white one I think is called Brightling, and then now we have Endling. 2 black and 2 colors for a 3/3 zombie shapeshifter. That's a fun creature type gathering. All right, 1 black gives you menace until end of turn, 1 black gives it death touch until end of turn, 1 black gives it undying until end of turn. And then it has the traditional ability that shows up on all of the Morphling-esque cards, and that is +1, -1, or -1, +1 by spending a colorless. The artwork is really interesting to me. I'm not sure exactly what it's trying to get across. I mean, obviously, you have kind of a mirror reflected image, but one is reflected in death and decay. So you have this individual shown with like sunflowers around her and standing there, and then you have the death version. I guess maybe this is supposed to be after you've used the undying ability and they've come back. Although the creature looks kind of like more withered on that side. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what the artwork is trying to depict, but I do know that I like the flavor of it. I like that whole mirror setup where it's like, look at me, I'm the young, vibrant version. It's like me, I am the dead version, like essence leaking off of me, surrounded by decay. It's pretty neat. Although this artwork feels like it could also be used as like someone's like life being undone, like a creature destruction spell. Either way, I like this card. It's a fun include. After that, we've got the card that I was alluding to earlier, talking about slivers. We've got Enduring Sliver, 1 white and 1 colorless for a 2/2 with Outlast 2. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Outlast only as a sorcery. Other slivers you control have Outlast 2. Time has ground mountains to sand, but the slivers ever remain. This card is so boring that it makes me yawn. I'm not even joking. This is the second time recording this video, and this card twice has made me yawn. It bores me. The card bores me. I look at the artwork and go, are the tails going off into the distance across the sand dunes or whatever this is supposed to be it growing and outlasting? Because honestly, giving Outlast to a bunch of slivers doesn't feel like it's worth it. This card feels like jank, and as such, I'm just going to move on. Next up, we've got Future Sight. Some of you might have known this was going to be in the video. All right, so 3 blue and 2 colors. It's an enchantment. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library. Is the inevitable any less miraculous? Veldka, Wandering Sage. So, this is a reprint. Originally, this was from Onslaught, if I'm not mistaken. It's interesting. The artwork is really interesting. You have something that's, like you have the future and the past being represented here. You've got a skull on one side and a skull on the other with moons in different conditions. You have like a crazy, weird little like baby floating in a magical sphere in front of what's maybe like a tree of life or something. And it's like, are these different paths the type of life that they could have? And you've got like a sapling going in front of it. This is a really crazy piece of artwork that I'm not 100% what's going on when I look at it, but I find it really interesting. I could probably spend an entire video just discussing this card all on its own. But either way, big fan of Future Sight. I like the way it all ties together. It lets you reach into the future of your own deck, your own mind, and use more than you'd be capable of using normally. Very interesting. Then we've got Goblin Champion. 1 red. It's a Goblin Warrior with haste and Exalted. It's an Exalted, if you don't know, is whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I think this is the first Exalted card that we've seen so far in our set review. The stories of his heroics are inspiring, though none of them are remotely true. That's funny. That's a funny thing to say about a Goblin Champion. And the artwork is cool, but it also kind of conflicts with the flavor text a bit. You see a goblin, and it looks like he's actually defeated this dragon. You can actually see that his shield is melted. Either it's melted or has had a flaming bite taken out of it, but the goblins still managed to defeat that dragon. Kev Walker's art looks great, but honestly, the way he's standing makes it look like he literally just defeated this dragon, which it does kind of contradict the flavor text, but that's not a massive deal. I like the card overall. It's nothing. I like it from a flavor perspective. It's all right. I mean, when you first play it, you can attack with that on its own. You got a 1/2, and then later on, it sits back, and instead of being useless, if you're only attacking with one creature, it's going to be contributing a bonus. Next up, we have Goblin Oriflame. This is a nice nod to the past. So 1 red, 1 colorless. It's an enchantment. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. It was difficult to tell whether the piles of gore within their warrens were mere trash heaps, sacred altars, or warnings. And that's from Sarpadian Empire's Volume 4. And this basically is a situation where the flavor text is attributed to the Fallen Empire's era. That's specifically what they're talking about with the flavor text. What's cool to me about this card is it's a nod to the old school card called Orcish Oriflame. Now, Orcish Oriflame was supposed to be 1 red and 3 colorless, all right? And it gives all your attacking creatures +1/+0, same ability. But they messed up in alpha and printed it at a red and a colorless. And people complained about how strong it was, and so they fixed it. They had it fixed afterwards, but the alpha printing was +1/+0 for only 2 mana, and that was considered too strong at the time. And now when you look at it, you go, is this even strong enough to make it into a deck? I don't think it is. The artwork, it just shows just like a pile of skulls and blades and armor just kind of jabbed. It's like a totem made out of trophies of war. That's what it looks like to me. And it's all right. The artwork doesn't really make me go, wow, this is amazing, but it's definitely all right. After that, we've got Hall of Heliod's Generosity. This is a legendary land that taps for a colorless mana, or for a white and a colorless, you can put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. The Stronghold of Theros' Light. Now, I like the mention of the word stronghold in the flavor text, because this is actually a reimagined Volrath Stronghold. Volrath Stronghold is pretty much the exact same card, except you change it to black, and it gets a creature to the top of your deck instead of an enchantment. So this is pretty cool because in this particular world, the world of Theros, enchantments can be creatures as well. So it actually has more of an overlap with the Stronghold than you would think. The artwork is absolutely amazing, honestly. You can see God. You can see God in the starry sky. You can see Heliod there, actually right up there with his spear in the starry sky. And enchantment creatures in the Theros block were made of this starry stuff. And I love the purples and the blues. I love it. Combined with like the orange like glow of warmth from inside the temple, where there's like that sphere almost seems like there's a rebirth happening inside the temple. This is really cool, honestly. This is some really dope artwork. I like every part of it. I like the buildings, the pillars and everything, the God in the sky, the starness of the sky. This overall for me is a win on that level. And in terms of what the card itself is in terms of ability, it feels genuinely strong. I like this card a lot. It gets a big thumbs up for me. After that, we got Kaya's Guile. I don't know, man. There's just something about there being cards in the set that are just basically like we're in the middle of the Ravnica block, or at the end of the Ravnica block, and we're dealing with this chick enough. Do we really need to have her shoved into Modern Horizons? Like, I get that you're pulling from all different times, but when you pull from the time we're in right now, it's like whatever. 1 black, 1 colorless, 1 white, and it's an instant. Choose 2. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Exile all cards from each opponent's graveyard. Create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying, or you gain 4 life. And it's got Entwine 3. I mean, getting to choose 2 of these at instant speed is not too shabby. What you're getting for your mana is pretty good here. The artwork is kind of goofy. I don't know. I get more of a like a Ghostbusters vibe off of this. She's just like, I'm auditioning to be in the Ghostbusters. Mew, am I scary? Look at me fly through the wall. Whoopity doobity. It's Plus, shouldn't she already be turning her body back out of ghost form? Because while she's in ghost form, her heart actually stops. So she can't have certain parts of her body in ghost form for very long at all. The artwork just doesn't do it for me. Moving on. We've got On Thin Ice. The flavor on this card's amazing. 1 white, Snow Enchantment Aura, enchant snowland you control. When On Thin Ice enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until On Thin Ice leaves the battlefield. The flavor text says he cursed the wind, he cursed the cold, but by stepping on the ice, he cursed himself. It's pretty funky. This guy is cast adrift on a tiny little glacier that he's just stuck on. I like that idea. You're bound on a snowland where it's just like, here you go. It's they had a similar enchantment. I can't remember the name of it. Where it was from the Throes blog. I think it was like Chained to the Rocks or something like that. Pretty sure that was the name. And you would enchant a mountain with it and it would exile the creature. And this has the same kind of flavor, but for snow permanence. And I like it, honestly. It feels even more forlorn and just you're kind of trapped. Then chained to a mountain's one thing. Someone can come along, cut your chain. Who's going to come and rescue you in this situation where you're floating out on a cold, frozen glacier and everything's all like the darkness of the waters and the sky and everything give this a real feeling of hopelessness, which I enjoy. The flavor on this is thick. After that, we've got Or Scale Guardian. 2 red, 5 colors for a 4/4 flying dragon. It costs 1 less to cast for each land in your graveyard, and it's got flying and haste. A dragon's loyalty cannot be earned, but it can be bought. I look at this and go, this is a fairly underwhelming dragon, but I suppose it can be pretty crazy if you're playing a deck that feeds a lot of lands in your graveyard. I mean, getting this for 2 red mana, a 4/4 flying haste for 2 red mana would be intense. So I'm just going to assume that this card is probably good for very particular decks and that I'm just not seeing the power level of it. You've got the dragon flying around a tower with somebody waving to it, hello! But I don't see how the flavor all ties together. This card doesn't do much for me. Moving on, we have a card that does do something for me. Pashalik Mons. This was a cool include that surprised me, but made me go, right on. 1 red, 2 colors for a 2/2 legendary goblin warrior. Whenever Pashalik Mons or another goblin you control dies, Pashalik Mons deals 1 damage to any target. 4 mana, sacrifice a goblin, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. The Thunderhead that leads in the storm. And this is a direct reference to Mons' Goblin Raiders, which are a card from all the way to the beginning of Magic. This was in Alpha. And it's interesting because most people would call them Mons Goblin Raiders, myself included, because for the longest time I didn't notice that it's Mons', but that's because it was named after a fellow named Mons. So this is a situation where we finally get the legendary goblin leader that can increase your ranks of goblins. He is taking these raiding hordes around. I like it. I like it. In all honesty, the goblin himself just seems like an everyday goblin. He's not super exciting to me. It definitely does give him an element of like warrior rage, though, that they made sure the sky and everything behind him was red. But overall, I'm just excited to see it's a decent card too. The fact that he does damage to any target when you lose goblins is what ties this together to make it like really gross, honestly. And it's got a Goblin Warrens feel from Fallen Empires as well. After that, we've got Ruination Rioter. 1 green, 1 red for a 2/2. When it dies, you have it deal damage to any target equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. Those Urbanist Cobble Roaches won't know what hit them. Much like the dragon, this is one where I go, okay, I mean, lands in your graveyard, okay, all right. So, I mean, overall, you've got this human berserker who's swinging in with a gigantic maul. That looks pretty cool. It looks like his weapon is actually made out of a jagged-ended, like, dragon's tooth or the claw of some beast. Definitely got a Groll feel to it. The card doesn't really turn my crank, though, and the flavor text feels lacking to me. I'm going to move on to the next card. Spiteful Sliver. 1 red, 2 colors for a 2/2. This guy's a rare Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have, whenever this creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker. This seems bonkers, honestly. This seems crazy. This is just going to make it so that instead of being afraid about charging your little donger slivers into their wall of like meat flesh, you're going to be like, yeah, whatever, man. Oh, did you block one of my little 1/1s with your 5/5? Well, that was stupid because I may lose my sliver, but now you're going to take 5. This is a great card for just punching through with slivers. It makes for very hard blocking choices. The flavor text says, victories against the Hive are tragedies. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess that's what they're saying. You can be victorious in combat, but it'll still be a tragedy. I don't really see how this Sliver is capable of doing what it does, though. I look at the artwork and go, this is a pretty standard sliver. It's got like multiple arms, which almost makes it feel like a double strike sliver, but it doesn't feel like there's nothing in the artwork to tell me how this thing has the ability to send damage that it's taken back at other creatures. So, bit of a flavor lost that way. But, I mean, the sliver itself looks fine. Just looks like it's coming out of some cave. Moving on. Throes of Chaos. 1 red, 3 colorless sorcery. It's got Cascade, so when you cast it, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less, and you can cast it for free if you want. And this has Retrace, so you can pitch a land from your hand to cast it from your graveyard again, and you could do that over and over as long as you have lands to pitch. So, I mean, it's definitely like you never know what you're going to get from it, so I get the idea of Chaos. The artwork is just confusing. I don't know what's going on. It looks like there's a rain of blades coming down, and then this lady leaps up to hug it, and it turns into an alligator that vomits fire. What? Throes of Chaos. What is going on in this artwork? Just feed all these swords into the butt of this salamander lizard belly, and he'll belch him out into hot metal. And then there's just like meteors falling in the corner too. What the hell is this? Wow, what crazy artwork. I wonder, what? I'm moving on. We've got a reprint that actually feels powerful enough for Modern here. 1 black, it's Unearth. Sorcery, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it's got cycling too. No matter how deep you bury it, some evil refuses to stay dead. And you can see the evil coming up out of some vent from the underworld, kind of lit. It's like a shadowed world they're climbing into. It's kind of, I like the reverse, where instead of it's all lit on the areas around that it would be clambering up onto the rocks, instead it's all darkened around it, and you've got this green and yellow sickly-ish light as this beast of ancient times, most likely an ancient Phyrexian, just claws its way out. That's pretty cool. And as I said, it feels like it's strong enough for Modern too, so that's nice. We've got Valiant Changeling next, 2 white and 5 colorless for a 3/3 shapeshifter. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature type among creatures you control. This effect can't reduce the amount of mana the spell costs by more than 5. So the most you can reduce it down to is 2 white, and it's a 3/3 changeling with double strike. Well, I know the guy who invented double strike. I'm actually friends with him. That's just a side note I wanted to mention. It's an okay card, I guess. I mean, it's for each different creature type you have. I mean, it's probably better in a draft where you're just gonna have disparate creature types than anything else, I guess. I mean, it's what for each. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature type among creatures you control. Couldn't you just have like a changeling out then? Wouldn't having 1 changeling out make this only cost 2? That might be all right. I mean, that's how it reads to me. Changeling is every creature type, so as long as you have a changeling out first, you can get this for 2 white. So I guess in draft it might be all right, or if you already have a changeling deck. But to me, the card's kind of underwhelming. I like the artwork though. I like the knight charging on the horse. Again, with this kind of like blue energy wisping away, I do really feel like this was meant to be fading or vanishing originally for these cards, and they got repurposed into changelings, especially since Morophon is the changeling lord, and there's no connection at all with that like purple energy being given off. But whatever, it's a minor nitpick. And then we've got Weather the Storm. 1 green, 1 colorless instant. You gain 3 life, and it's got Storm, so it copies itself for each spell cast before it. Quell your ego, and anywhere can be as calm as a hurricane's eye. Flavor text, meh. Artwork, pretty interesting. You can see someone just chilling while all kinds of electricity, all kinds of lightning is blasting around them. It's interesting because you don't normally get to see a lot of lightning in a very green-based card like this, where it's green bordered, the artwork is very green, it's got like a sylvan feel to it, and even the lightning itself has almost like a green feel to it too. This is a card that's going to mess up storm decks. If you're playing like something like Tendrils of Agony or Grape Shot, you're only going to be able to do 1 or 2 damage to your opponent per iteration, and Weather the Storm's going to gain more than that. Although, to be fair, in terms of Tendrils of Agony, that deck is going to gain a bunch of life from that, and that does give them more time to try again. It's going to be more devastating against Grape Shot and other things, But yeah, I mean, if someone's playing Storm, this can be a hilarious, oh, by the way, I cast a ton of life. The only Storm cards that aren't going to care about this are cards like Brain Freeze. Oh, nice life total you have there, son, but where's your deck? Oh, you lose. So it's an all right card. I like it. I like it. And the final card we have for the spoilers today is Webweaver Changeling. 2 green, 3 colors for a 3/5 shapeshifter spider. When it enters the battlefield, if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you gain 5 life. Flavor text says, 8 legs carrying endless phobias. Okay, I guess because it's a changeling, it can turn into everything, but it's only in its spider form. What? What? Okay, whatever. Whatever. The artwork's pretty crazy. You can look what looks like full-sized humans are suspended from under the web, like it's caught a bunch of actual people and bound them up there. Or those could be like drakes, who knows? But it's definitely got a certain level of menace to it. It's got that whole, look at me, I've got like what... The problem is the scorpion before it said that it was made purely of poison. So you look at it and go, wait, is this guy supposed to be made purely of poison? Are all changelings made of poison? That's what I think each time now when I see those cards, because the scorpions, like, you use other information to set the tone for you, and that's what's happened with this spider for me. But hey, it's all good. Overall, it's an okay card. Certainly doesn't feel like anything modern power level. It's just like a throwaway draft kind of card, but hey, whatever, it is what it is. So that covers all the cards. I just wanted to mention, for those of you who don't know, I do actually have a second channel where we're goofing around and having a lot of fun. So you're welcome to come on by. It's just named after me. Channel's just called Mike Hatcher. Nice and simple. I'll link it at the end of the video. So if you want to come by and check it out, you're welcome to do so. And now I'm going to roll the golden scroll. The people have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. It is very appreciated. And we are adding a new member on the channel side, Kevin Grubb. Thanks for hopping on board and joining my channel membership today. It is very much appreciated. To all of you, I say thanks for being here. And for now, I'm history, baby.